How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer on SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today as we continue on back to our regular scheduled program that we've been covering for about the last 2 weeks now. The 2025 Kansas City Chiefs player expectations, my expectations. We've already covered several players thus far, from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball to some of the rookies coming into the new system. I found this series to be very exciting and kind of give a better insight on my opinions on what the makeup of the Kansas City Chiefs roster is. So today, following in suit with that, we are going to talk about second year offensive linemen going into this year, Kingsley Suamataia. Now, there are a ton of stuff kind of to break down and the expectations that I have for Kingsley. There is a multitude, though, that he has to grow from, at least from what we saw last season. But before we get into that, just some housekeeping things for you guys. As I've told you several times thus far on the podcast series since the date has been announced, Kansas City Chiefs, they will be heading down to St. Joe on July 21st for their training camp, with their first practice happening on the 22nd. The training camp will go until around mid-August, which means that we are getting closer and closer to the 2025 NFL campaign. I know the Kansas City Chiefs are excited. The way that Patrick Mahomes and company have talked about this season, coming off of that Super Bowl LIX loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm very much excited, looking forward to what the Kansas City Chiefs have in store for Chiefs Kingdom in 2025. But without further ado, let's talk about Kingsley Suamataia. Now, last season, and I'm looking up all these things from PFF, Pro Football Focus, he had a majority of his snaps at the left tackle position. As we know, that's not going to be the case this season, now that they brought in first-rounder 2025 NFL Draft Josh Simmons, as well as signed Jalen Moore through free agency. Just because that left side it had its struggles last season, it's better now that they kind of solidify that area and then give a chance to both Kingsley Suamataia and Mike Caliendo at the left guard position. Last season, Suamataia played 31 snaps at left guard. In his 195 offensive snaps played, 131 of them were pass block snaps. However, Kingsley did not have the best season last year. He had 6 hits allowed. Total pressures allowed was 14. He allowed Patrick Mahomes to get sacked 3 times. And keep in mind, this is a guy who's played less than 200 snaps, and he's having these hiccups on the offensive line, so to say. And he also had 3 penalties. So, going forward, it is a tricky line to walk through for Kingsley Suamataia. This guy is a former second-round pick. You want to see him become the starting left guard. So much so that I would say that coming out of training camp, depending on it, way before training camp has even happened, I'm fully expecting Suamataia to take a step forward and earn that left guard starting position. No disrespect to Mike Caliendo, but I do think that if a guy who they have invested in Suamataia being a second-round draft pick, you gotta have there be progression moving in the right direction. And from last season, the only way to do that is to put him up on the field for more than 200 offensive snaps and see how he adjusts. Head coach Andy Reid has discussed this offseason that the competition between Suamataia and Mike Caliendo will be for that left guard position. Going into training camp, Caliendo says that it's only nothing but fair competition, and that's what you want to see going in a specific offensive lineman room. or just any room that the Chiefs have on their roster at all. You don't want players to go in just expecting to take the back seat to another player, because then that would just mean that they're not giving their all into earning their spot. Like, this is an opportunity that is hanging, and a lot of players don't necessarily, especially young players, don't have an opportunity to become the starting positions in their second season, depending on how they played last year. But since Suamataia's first year was not all that terrific, I'm fully expecting him to take a step forward in the right direction. However, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if I would hope that it's less quarterback pressures, less total hits, allowed, better protecting Patrick Mahomes. Because as we know, Patrick Mahomes was sacked the most that he's ever been sacked in his Super Bowl, no, not his Super Bowl career, just his entire career in general. In fact, during the Super Bowl, that's where I was going with the Super Bowl talk. That was the most that he's ever been taken down in the postseason in his life, 6 times against the Philadelphia Eagles in a single game. It is not all lenient on Suamataia. The offensive line had its struggles last season, but with the likes of Trey Smith on that offensive line, Creed Humphrey, there are guys that are better suited in the on the other side, on the right and center side. The left tackle or the left guard position or the left side in general becomes a very weak for defenses to approach and attack. If that is the narrative going into the new season, you gotta assume and you've gotta expect from a head coach standpoint, from an offensive line coordinator standpoint, that you have got to get better production out of the guys who are younger in this scheme. While Kingsley, he has a lot to learn, but I don't think that he's incapable of doing so. So I would expect Kingsley to play in more than 250, 300 offensive snaps this season, so long as he stays healthy. Coming out of the training camp, I would like to see him as the offensive guard on the left side of the offensive line. However, I don't want the Chiefs to just hand him that due to his younger age and the chance that they want to see him grow. If Mike Caliendo is the better option, the Chiefs should go with him. But with that being said, that's going to be a topic to keep up on for the majority of training camp. And with that, you're going to want to follow us on social media. You can follow me at X at Dom Minchella, where I post and repost every single day. And we will be covering the entirety of training camp as well as into the new season. You don't want to miss it. On SI, Chiefs on SI is the place to get all your news. You can also follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI, where all of our stories get published by our wonderful writing staff. You can also, if you're listening on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below to sports videos on SI. With that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I am the Kansas City Chiefs beat writer Dominic Minchella signing off, reminding you to be kind to one another. As always, I'll see you tomorrow.